Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy Boulanger. Up next on the GM, 5 wideouts that could be on the move draft night. Do me a quick favor, hit like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Let's talk about it. So, the Baltimore Ravens have roster questions that they have been trying to answer and or that they're going to try and answer draft night. But the fact of the matter is, there are some positions that we need to fill that a rookie may not be able to do the job. And that position may be at wide receiver. I think that there is going to be some big time talent that's going to be on the move at the wide receiver position draft night. So I'm going to hit 5 wide receivers and tell you why they could be on the move and why the Baltimore Ravens should be interested in that particular player. So let's get started. First up, let's go with the division rival Cincinnati Bengals and their wide receiver T. Higgins. We understand that T. Higgins has been franchise tagged this offseason because he's up for a new contract and does not seem to be one coming. Uh, all rumors and all signs point to him being on the move. And I think the reason why the Cincinnati Bengals will move him draft night, not that T. Higgins will go for a first round draft pick, but just simply because Jamar Chase is up for a new contract. Joe Burrow's new money just kicked in, and there's not going to be cap room to keep another high-priced wide receiver, especially with a deep draft at wide receiver on the horizon. So I think that T. Higgins will be moved between now and draft night. I think that a team could probably give up a third or a fourth round pick to attain T. Higgins. He's probably going to be, of all 5 wide receivers that I named, he's going to be the easiest to attain because the Cincinnati Bengals already have their quarterback in place. They already have their number one wide receiver in place, which they will pay. And I think that they'll be able to take that draft capital that they pick up for T. Higgins and reinvest that into their wide receiver room at a much cheaper price. I think T. Higgins will be moved on draft night. A couple of teams that have been rumored to be interested in T. Higgins are the Carolina Panthers, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and also the Ravens. Not because the Ravens have really looked into T. Higgins, but there was an article that came out that T. Higgins wanted to play with Lamar Jackson, and so just be on the lookout. I really doubt that the Cincinnati Bengals would trade him in the division because that would be um, kind of a mistake. Because now you have to figure out how to guard him along with everything else that the Ravens and or Steelers bring to the table. All right, so that's T. Higgins. Next up, let's go out west, and I'm going to include these two guys together, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk of the San Francisco 49ers. These two guys have played together for roughly 4 seasons. They've been super productive playing off of one another. They've had a myriad of quarterbacks, but they still have gotten the job done. They've gone to the Super Bowl twice, had not captured the chip, but like things, all good things must come to an end. I think this duo at wide receiver will be broken up this offseason. The rumors around Brandon Ayuk is that he has requested a trade. I know most recently he has scrubbed the San Francisco 49ers logo and imagery from his social media accounts. And we know that's kind of a signal and sign of a few things. That's a signal and sign that, hey, I want a new deal or to move me. We've seen a lot of that happen, and we've seen some action happen afterwards by the team, whether they trade him or whether they give him a long-term deal. I do not think Brandon Ayuk gets a long-term deal as long as Deebo Samuel is in-house. That's why I put these two guys together. I think one of these guys will be moved. Personally, I think Brandon Ayuk is the better wide receiver. Deebo Samuel may be the better overall athlete simply because he can do more, or he has shown that he could do a lot more on the football field, whether that's handing him the ball out of the backfield, whether that's throwing it to him out of the backfield, or whether that's him receiving the ball as a wide receiver. But Brandon Ayuk is a good route runner. He has good hands. He can make all the catches. He has good speed, and it's time for him to get paid. So I don't know which one will be moved. If I'm San Francisco, I'm probably keeping Ayuk. He's the younger of the two. He's the more healthy of the two. And Debo Samuel has had some injury concerns over his last 2 or 3 seasons. And so, because I have Christian McCaffrey in house, if I'm the 49ers, I keep McCaffrey, of course. I keep IU, give him the deal, and I trade Debo Samuel for some draft compensation. Which one happens, I don't know, but I think one of these two guys will be moved on draft night. All right, let's go up north and let's deal with Justin Jefferson, who is probably the best wide receiver that I'm going to name today. He may be even the best wide receiver in the league. Justin Jefferson, uh, that I know of, has not requested a trade, but I don't think he's going to be really willing to sit still for a rebuild. The Minnesota Vikings just signed Sam Darnold at quarterback. And I know that a player can make a lot of money, but along with making a lot of money, a player wants to win. And right now, they don't have a winning quarterback. The Minnesota Vikings may make some moves in the draft to get up to get one of the rookie quarterbacks, but I think that's as much as they're going to be able to do. There's no good veterans that's going to be on the move and things of that nature, and so Minnesota seems to be in a rebuild of sorts. Offensively, and I think that they could absolutely move Justin Jefferson because he's young, he's super productive, athlete. He's a contested catch guy. He has speed. I mean, there's nothing this guy can't do on the field. But I think that it's going to be super costly to get Justin Jefferson. I think you have to take a look at the Tyreek Hill deal when he moved from the Chiefs to the Miami Dolphins. I think that's going to be your baseline. And I think that Justin Jefferson, because he's probably 6 or 7 years younger than Tyreek Hill, he's bigger. He has uh, probably has better hands than Hill at this point. I think that you're going to look probably at 2 or 3 first round picks, or maybe a couple of first, a player, and some later round picks to get a guy like Justin Jefferson. So he's probably going to be the most difficult to attain only because it's going to be so costly. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Minnesota Vikings just hit reset, especially with a deep wide receiver class. They need a quarterback, and so they could, flip Justin Jefferson and just totally rebuild their team starting now. All right, so that's Justin Jefferson. I think another guy out west that could be on the move is a DK Metcalf. Not a situation that the Seattle Seahawks do not want DK Metcalf. He's big, strong, fast. There's nothing this guy can't do on the field. Super athletic, a guy the Ravens should have already had. They could have just got him in the draft and been done with it. But he could be on the move. Why? Well, I think Seattle may hit reset offensively because they're paying DK Metcalf somewhere upwards of $25 million, and that seems to be the going rate for a um, number one wide receiver. But when is Seattle going to be ready to win? They got a new head coach. They drafted Njigba last year. This is a deep wide receiver draft class. They still have a veteran in Tyler Lockett who could help these young guys develop and learn the game. And so they could absolutely capitalize on a DK Metcalf trade, which I think it'll take a minimum of a second round pick to get the conversation started, and then some other included picks in order to make something happen with the DK Metcalf. But I think a second round pick and maybe 2 seconds, a 2024 second, 2025 second, and some other picks, I think could get a DK Metcalf trade done. Not saying the Ravens would do that. I'm just talking what it would take to get a guy like Metcalf. I think that Metcalf is not going to want to stay around to have a reset at the quarterback position, whether they stick with Geno Smith as a starter this year and let Sam Howell continue to learn, or whether they give Sam Howell a real opportunity to take over the job from Geno Smith. Either way, I don't think Seattle is in a winning position over the next 2 to 3 seasons, and to pay a guy top dollar at wide receiver and only be playing for regular season pride, I think doesn't make good financial sense for Seattle right now, especially as they are hitting reset at a lot of different positions. So I think DK Metcalf is another guy that could be on the move. Last but not least, I'm going to say a guy like a DJ Moore out in Chicago could be on the move. I know that Chicago is have been trying to build their wide receiver room with veterans. They just added Keenan Allen. I don't think Keenan Allen makes DJ Moore expendable by no means, but I think the pickup of Keenan Allen could go along with just trying to set the table for a rookie quarterback like Caleb Williams, who I think they're certainly going to draft with that number 1 pick. I think DJ Moore could be on the move because Chicago has the number 1 overall pick, and they also have number 9. And Moore is making maybe 18, $19 million this season. I think they could certainly go Caleb Williams and then pick up one of the top wide receivers in this draft and still have a veteran like a Keenan Allen in place, and then just keep it moving like that. I don't know, but DJ Moore is a guy to keep your eye on, especially if they could flip him for a couple of picks, some thirds, a fourth, something like that. I don't think Chicago is going to give him away by no means, so a team would have to come correct with an offer. But I think DJ Moore is another guy who could be on the move. Let's sum up this whole conversation. When you think about all of the players that I mentioned, all of the wide receivers that I mentioned 6 names, but again, I put Ayuk and Debo Samuel together. I think the ones that are most likely to be moved between now and draft night is T. Higgins, Ayuk, or Debo Samuel. I think one of them certainly will be moved. I think that DK Metcalf would certainly be a candidate to be moved. I don't know what Seattle's thinking, and in the context of what they're going to do at wide receiver, but I know that they began the rebuild process last year. Um, who should the Baltimore Ravens be interested in? Well, my opinion is every single name that I mentioned, the Baltimore Ravens should be interested in. I think that if the Ravens were to be able to go after one of these guys, I think the highest thing they would be willing to sacrifice is a second round pick to get a proven guy and some lesser included. I don't think they would be willing to sacrifice several first round picks to go get Justin Jefferson. But I think T. Higgins could be on the table. I think Samuel or Ayuk could be on the table. My preference, thinking about Ayuk or Samuel, would be Ayuk. Um, we have some guys to do some things out of the backfield, and we're going to pick up a guy in this draft, according to Harbaugh and EDC. We're going to pick up a running back, and so I think going to get the better of the wide receivers, the more healthy of the wide receivers, I think that could be a great option. I think for the Baltimore Ravens. So I think that Ayuk and DK Metcalf are the most likely that the Baltimore Ravens could pursue and be able to attain. If they can get a deal done, I don't have a preference either or, right? Because both of these guys could come in and take some pressure off of Zay Andrews likely, because to have a guy that you can put on the field that is that go-to guy, playing that number 1 X receiver allows everybody else to kind of settle into their role and not step outside of what they're trying to do. Man, what would Zay look like with a guy like Ayuk or DK Metcalf? I think that Some offers for both of these guys. I think Metcalf or Ayuk. I think the Ravens could go second round pick, which is late in the second round anyway. Second round pick and maybe a third in 2025, maybe a second and a fourth in 2024, something like that. I think could get a deal done. Although, we saw a couple of other dudes, Stephon Diggs and also Jerry Jeudy, already get moved for a roll of quarters and a bag of nickels this off season. DK Metcalf and Ayuk are a better player overall, and so I think they'll go for a little more. I think if the Ravens were willing to go and do that, sacrifice that second round pick to go get one of these guys, I think then the natural inclination for the Ravens would then be able to or be willing to trade out of the first round into the top of the second to recapture some draft capital and then keep moving from there. And I think that would be a super beneficial idea for us to go get a number one and then just add some talent later in the draft at the wide receiver position. I don't think you can ever have too much talent on an offensive team. So let me know what you guys want me to know, man. What do you guys think about DK Metcalf or Ayuk? Out of all 5 or 6 players that I mentioned, I think those are the most too likely to be on the move this offseason. And I think giving up a second and a fourth in 2024 could get one of these guys, or a second and a next year third, especially when the Ravens should have 4 compensatory picks next year. So giving up a next year pick won't be that bad for the Ravens. So let me know what you guys want me to know. I'm your guy Boulanger. This is the GM. We're out.